Hi, I was waiting for a commercial to come on and it didn't come on, so that's okay. Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to We Speak here on the AFAA Facebook page. I am Katrina Pilkington, your wellness educator and master instructor, coming to you this week with where we speak to the community about Q&A. So a lot of times on our Facebook group, we have that's on Facebook of our group fitness instructors and also on the study page and on the AFAA page, we do get some questions from y'all about the exam, the test, different business questions. So we're going to dive into that. And today I have my colleague and friend, Jay Guillory, master instructor, here with me today. And we're going to try our best to stay focused and not go on tangents and answer y'all's questions. I mean, we're going to do the best we can. Jay, you want to give a little bit of the lowdown on who you are, what you do, how you got here, and your blood type?
Clear, sure. I am Jay Guillory, and I am a AFAA Master Instructor, and I am based in the DC area, and I am here to help my friend out help my friend Katrina answer these questions.
Awesome. So if you're watching live with us today, feel free to chime in, chat, ask questions. We've seen a lot of questions, and I will just be bluntly honest in a loving way. You know, we aren't here to give answers to the exam. I mean, that's the whole point of the exam, is for you to study and get through the material so that you can be the very best fitness instructor you can be. But are we here to help guide you and give some helpful tips on some of the principles within that exam? Absolutely. So that's what we're here to talk about today. And just a little bit of background about me in case you haven't watched this show before. I'm a wellness educator working in the space of equity and inclusion in the fitness industry, and also a group fitness master instructor here with AFAA. I've been in the industry a little over a decade, and I am currently in the Tampa Bay area back home. I was in California a year ago, and we have since moved about 1 million times. So hopefully I'm here to stay for a while. So Jay, I mean, I can just kind of go down my list of what we had to talk about. We get kind of sometimes the same questions and kind of sometimes not the same questions. So
it's all about the test. You know, at some point, it's all about the test.
I mean, if you want to chime in and ask us questions, we're here to answer questions, but we're just going to make sure that we stay like Switzerland, and we
good way to put it.
Stay Switzerland. So the first topic I had was to discuss CPR and AED requirements online, as currently we have been in the world of spatial distance. And folks on our group fitness instructor page ask a lot about, does AFAA accept online certifications as part of your recertification, which you need to do every 2 years? Do you know this answer, Jay?
Currently, yes, we do.
Currently, yes. So if you go to our Facebook page, if you're certified and you request to join and go in there, you can search through different topics that might have been already asked. And that's one hot topic. And one of the organizations I know that we do accept is the American Heart Association. So just make sure that you read through when you're going to sign up for CPR courses that they meet the requirements of our AFAA recertification online acceptance. Cool. Again, any questions, let us know. I'm going to dive into the next. I had a very broad topic, Jay. We're going to dish about it, talk about muscle actions and muscle groups.
Okay.
I know that you and I talk a lot about this in live workshops, which have been kind of non-existent currently, which is okay. But
almost a year now.
I know, it's been interesting. So I know this was a very tough concept for me to grasp because I was used to just working out and didn't really think about muscle groups and actions. How did you kind of tackle this topic when you taught live workshops or would teach online workshops for group fitness instructors?
I think for me, I basically would get people to understand that there's muscles do one thing and joints do other things.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, say for instance, muscles primarily have 3 different types of contractions: isometric, isotonic, and isokinetic. And within those 3 different types of contractions, muscles get small, they get short, they get long. Those are things that muscles do. Now, when it comes to joint actions, these are the things that are being done by joints. So joints don't concentric, joints don't eccentric. Joints can flex and they can extend. Mm-hmm. So joints move in a lot of different ways versus muscles, they kind of only pull in 2 specific directions.
Mm-hmm. Very true. I love that. And I know for me personally, and this is again, everybody has different access and different preferences, but if you want to download certain anatomy apps, I did it for myself because I was doing kinesiology in school at the same time as I was doing all these exams. So it was helpful for me to download, and it was worth the investment for me. So I was able to physically see what the joints were doing, what the muscles were doing, and I was able to then dissect the page in the textbook into a tangible kinesthetic type of way. So just like Jay said, you know, the joints do one thing and the muscles do another. The muscles, you want to understand what each main muscle group does as a group fitness instructor compared to the NASM exam that's a little bit more lengthy. But knowing that, you want to understand what an agonist is, a main muscle worker, and then an antagonist, which is kind of the opposite action of that muscle. But don't get that confused with the flexion, extension, etc. of those joints. Right?
Absolutely. I think that was one of the beautiful things about doing live workshops, is because for your kinesthetic learners, like, it's one thing to sit down and read a definition of the word flexion. It decreases the angle between two bones, but most people don't really get that unless they're in an environment to where you're actually showing them what that looks like, as opposed to them just reading it on a page, or at least seeing a video about it.
Right. And so maybe, you know, to your point, talking about the exam and the test, before diving into these topics, which will continue our list, but understand what kind of learner you are. I know I'm a very tactile, very kinesthetic learner. I have to do, touch, and actually practice in order for a function or something that's a topic that I'm studying to literally sink in with me. That's just the way that I learn. Some people are, you know, audible learners. Some people are visual learners. And if you're just reading the textbook and then expecting to, you know, devote that to memory, that might not be it for you.
Absolutely. And I think it's when you take those different subject matters and put them in a live setting, it's kind of like people will read definitions to what these actions are, but they don't completely understand the action until they see the human body move in that particular way. So I think for a lot of people, especially when it comes to taking the test, it's really good to, like you said, download an app and figure out how these actions actually are moving, so you don't get confused. It's like, because one person could say, well, elbow extension and shoulder abduction look the same. Yeah, they look the same, but they don't exactly mean the same thing.
Right. Exactly. And if it's confusing, find a way that works for you. I think the app that I used was the 3D anatomy app, which doesn't have to be paid, but I think if you do, it's like $10 for the year. But being able to literally look at the body in layers and just look at the skeleton, or just look at one particular muscle or two working together, and watching how that worked was really helpful for me. And I even think at one point, I know you can't do this now, but I went to the bodies exhibit when I lived in Las Vegas and just wanted to look and see and understand the different layers of the muscles. I know you can't do that now, but you can watch a video of it. Are you
Absolutely. Absolutely. I went to that exhibit also. I think the thing at that exhibit that amazed me the most was the nerves.
Yes.
Like, it's like the human body has oh my God, it was insane.
Yeah.
How many nerves go throughout the human body. I thought that was just amazing.
I know. I was that person that was in the exhibit, probably like getting a little too close to these exhibits, cadavers. So don't do that. Just go online and learn the way that you learn. But understand that as a group fitness instructor, you know, sometimes folks are like, you know, I don't need to know these muscle actions. I don't understand why I need to know these muscle actions. You do, because it does translate into keeping your students safe and knowing what proper movement patterns you want to see in folks, and what, you know, improper movement patterns you might see that you want to help correct or watch out for, so that folks that come to your class can be kept safe and be doing exercises that are helping with their function, not their dysfunction.
Right. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that this is the one thing that causes people to understand programming better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when you understand muscle groups, joint actions, and how they relate to each other, then you understand how to program perfectly balanced classes, to where you're working anterior and posterior muscles in synergy.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of anterior and posterior, understanding those different functions of anterior, posterior, superior, inferior, proximal, distal, that is important. Learn that.
All of that is important.
Front and back.
It's alongside with planes of motion, because I think one of the things that people the planes of motion are probably one of the trickiest things that people have to get to understand, because the name of a frontal plane doesn't necessarily mean that you're moving front and back. And to say something like, because what I've normally had to do is actually demonstrate this with the use of mats. It's like, okay, so if the sagittal plane separates the body into left and right halves, or medial and lateral halves, like that plane basically separates you here. So if you take two mats and then you put them on the side of your body, how do you move without touching the planes of glass? And that's how you know you're working in the sagittal plane. And once people see that visual, that makes it a lot easier. So then you take those sagittal planes and then you make it the frontal plane to where you have one in front and one in back. How do you move without touching the glass? And then you can see primarily what your movement actions are in those specific planes.
Right. And even, you know, understanding not just the planes of motion, to Jay's point, but when you're teaching a class and programming a class, hopefully getting to the place where you can program, understanding, for example, I'm a runner. I love to run, but when I strength train, I need to make sure that I'm working in the lateral plane. I need to make sure that I'm moving my body in the transverse way so that I'm not just getting really good at going forwards and backwards. Propensity for injury can go up if I just do that. So understanding your folks that you teach and understanding what they do every day to challenge them in different planes of motion so that the body and the muscles are challenged all around, and it's more functional versus repetitive, hurtful movement patterns that can sometimes cause injury.
Absolutely. So I think it's very important to, especially programming cardiorespiratory classes. It's always important to make them three-dimensional. So you do movement in the sagittal plane, in the frontal plane, and in the transverse plane.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm the worst, and those that follow me on social know that I have a specific kind of treadmill and a specific kind of bike, and I like to take specific online classes, and that's okay. But what's funny is because I do this for a living, I'm a little bit of a rebel, and I sometimes don't do what the instructor tells me solely because I want to challenge myself in other planes of motion. So if you're a group fitness instructor or somebody studying for the group fitness exam, understanding that, okay, if I want to get good at writing programming, maybe I should practice on myself and write a program that's challenging all planes of motion. Go ahead, Jay.
Absolutely. I think I absolutely agree with that. I think that's one of the things that first try things out on yourself and see if they work there. And then that way you can better explain those things to your class when you decide to incorporate them into your class programming.
Yeah, and I think, you know, one thing for me going from being, I guess you can say, I'm still an everyday person, but the everyday person into being the instructor, I'm just like y'all, and into being, you know, a master instructor is looking at the world differently. So when I would go out into the world, I would, you know, work out or whatever. But now when I go into the world, or even living with my mom now, seeing how she has to sit down, stand up, you know, reach in the cabinets, pick up my kid, and understanding how you want to make sure that your classes translate in those planes of motion for your class, because they need to be functional, not just physical, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Because for the general fitness population, especially the people that are class participants that are taking classes with us, if they're not heavily involved in a sport or in a specific type of event, like a Tough Mudder contest, then basically a lot of the stuff that we do in our classes has to be functional, because if it's not functional, then what's the use of going? Right,
exactly. So understand your class, understand what they need, understand your demographic, which leads me into my next topic, talking about questions we get with folks about what do I do after I'm certified. So let's just assume you've passed your exam. So we're going to kind of skip the exam part. Now, what do I do? I think one of the biggest things, like I just hit on, we can elaborate on, is getting to know who you're going to serve. Who is your demographic? What do they do? What do they need physically? What are they not getting in physically in their everyday life? That sort of thing.
Okay, well, there's one thing they have to do before that.
Okay, go ahead.
They have to go and join the AFAA Facebook page, the AFAA YouTube page, the AFAA Instagram page first, because that's where all of the AFAA Master Instructors are, and that's what it's, especially in this time of spatial distancing, that's what we all are, to help answer questions, to help roadmap people to be successful group fitness instructors. So I think that's one of the first things that you got to do, is get on there and become a part of the community, an active part of the community.
True. Touche. True.
Just saying.
True, Shay. But yeah, build community. Like, definitely take the time to not feel like you're on your own little island. I know that COVID has done this to many of us, to realize, wow, we do need each other, even if it's virtual. So finding our community, going in there, and like I said, search first, just because many great answers have been already provided. And then if your question's not there, ask away. But the only question that I guess you can call as a silly question is the one that's not answered or asked. So find your village, find your community, and make sure that you become a part of it.
Right. And I think one of the important things to do is just take your time. Take your time. You know, for after you get certified, take your time. It's a very adrenaline pumping thing once you get the certificate in your hand and you've conquered the test and you've gotten all this done. But after that, just take your time. Slow down. Don't try to teach everything at once. You know, focus on what you know you're really good at. Kind of get that down, and then start to dip into other areas or other different modalities of fitness, because I think people come in and they get overwhelmed, or they try to take on so much so fast that they don't last as long in the industry as long as we would like them to. Like, I've been in the industry for 23 years now, almost 25 years actually, and it's hush. It's it's pretty much served me well. But I also, you know, came into the industry in the mind frame of, I didn't just want to do one thing. I didn't just want to say, I'm going to teach group fitness and that's it. It's like, after that, I became a personal trainer. And then after that, I wanted to learn the business of fitness and running fitness facilities and running boot camps and then it became the presenter route. So I think you have to think big initially, but make sure that, you know, you give yourself time to accomplish those bigger goals.
Yeah,
because it's one of the questions that you probably get as much as I do, especially when we used to travel. It's like, how did you get to that position? How did you get to how did you get to do that?
So slowly. Yeah. It's a compound effect. I use the compound effect to relate to everything in life. If you take small chunks of a goal or a mission or a task and you do a little bit at a time, the compound effect is going to be much greater than if you were to, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term, bite off more than you could chew. So take your time, you know, and like I talked about niche or, you know, demographic, but maybe pick what your demographic is that you want to start with. And let's just say that using dumbbells or equipment is stressful to you and overwhelming to you. That's okay. Maybe just learn body weight movements. That's a great way to understand your muscle actions in a simplified manner without diving into using different modalities and exercise equipment that could be a little bit overwhelming, right?
And think about it like this. At this point in time, because so many people are exercising at home, that maybe all they have is body weight.
That's true.
So, I mean, you'd be doing yourself a huge favor learning how to move your own body and create your classes, especially if you're going to have an online presence, because the fact of the matter is I don't think the online presence is going to disappear. Nope. Like, it's going to be a part of what we offer to reach more people.
Right. There is a shortage. I mean, I know this because we moved recently, like twice. And when I was debating whether to bring my dumbbells with me or not, I did look and I saw there was a huge demand for folks trying to buy equipment. So I was like, let me just hold on to these, even though they're super heavy. I'll let the movers move them. But I didn't want to have to go buy them over again because they were nowhere to be found. So understand that, okay, if I want to teach kids, for example, in a social distance manner approved by whatever city or state, I'm going to do it in this fashion. I don't necessarily need to have equipment because, you know, that would alleviate people having to touch objects and keeps things a lot more sanitized. So think about those types of things before you delve into building programming and then also building into a clientele base, because you want to understand what you're getting into first.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's just one of the things that our job is just to get people moving. So even with the simplest of equipment, I'm going to tell you, I was in the Army. And we never used equipment. We never had it. But we got exercise done, PT done every morning. We never had equipment.
No, that was my not bread and butter. But I mean, like when I got into the fitness industry, for those that know me, I got into a very high intensity exercise format that was like my humble beginning, but it was because I had no equipment at home. And I thought, okay, well, if these people on this commercial look like they're huffing and puffing and pretty much dying, and they look like they're getting a good workout, then I probably don't need to go to a gym or enter a gym space. I can do this at home because I have this, but I don't have anything else right now. So don't knock it till you try it. And
I think
too,
a
like when
lot
I
of it,
work with clients or students. Go ahead.
I think a lot of it has to do with us as leaders in the fitness industry and as ambassadors of the fitness industry for all of the GFIs out there. It's one of those things to simplify this, make it as simple as possible, because our industry, from a science standpoint, we have a lot of guidelines and regulations and rules and stuff you have to do this much cardio and you have to do this much strength training and this. I'm like, and to the regular consumer of fitness, that's an awful lot to take on, especially when you have kids and you have a job and you have all this other stuff. And I think to myself, sometimes I'm like, yeah, it's important for us as professionals to know that. But what's more important is for us to just give people the simple things to do on a daily basis to get them just to move more.
Right. And when we talk about like overcompensation or muscle dysfunction or muscle imbalances, I know for me personally, I'm just going to speak for myself personally, that a lot of my injuries happened when I was doing things I probably shouldn't have, or I did things too much and overtrained. So working on just stabilization when you think about the NASM spectrum, or even just as a group fitness instructor, working on the small stabilizing muscles and working on the body weight first, using the body as resistance, is a great way to maximize not only your business, but your clientele and your knowledge base in the early stages.
Absolutely. And then people are not so resistant to exercise programming, I think, because that's what ends up happening is when you take on these big, huge tasks that you give people, they start to get resistance to exercise because, I think like food, humans have either good relationships with exercise or bad relationships with exercise. And I think as an industry, when you're young and you're in sport, there are certain things that have happened and people have used exercise as a punishment for coming to practice late, not getting this certain thing done, not getting this certain thing done. So, the psychology of as you grow up, like you start to look at exercise in a very negative light and you don't want to go for a walk. Like that's how bad it has gotten. It's like people just don't want to even get up and go for a walk.
Right. Like build a healthy relationship. And, like we talked about, spatially distant, socially connected, whatever the guidelines are in your state or city, building community, moving with your community, whether it's online or in person, distance, making sure you remember that this isn't just about exercise. It's about decreasing chronic health issues, helping folks get healthier, teaching them that movement can be fun, especially our younger population who, to Jay's point, I never played sports, so I don't gotta worry about that part. But my husband did, and he does tell me that. He's like, I used to have a coach always tell me what to do, and now that I have to do it, I'm like, so knowing
exactly
10 minutes a day, or even if you teach classes, they don't have to be an hour or 45 minutes. They can be little chunks that fit into folks' day. And that'll actually maximize the propensity that people will do something if it's attainable, if it's achievable, and it doesn't build resentment.
Absolutely. That's why I like a lot of the streaming services, they give you a range of time that classes can last. They give you 5 minutes of this or 10 minutes of this, 15 or 20 minutes of this, and then you have 45-minute things. I know for me, especially now, sometimes I don't like to do the whole 45-minute thing. So instead of doing that, I'll do 2 20-minute segments of 2 totally different modalities of exercise, and that still gets it in.
Isn't that funny? It's so funny. I do the same thing when I run. I'll just pick different playlists, and I don't know what it is. If I do like 2 20s, it's the same thing as a 45-minute-ish, but for some reason,
it's psychological because it's kind of like I know where I am in this particular workout, but if I start a new one, it feels like I'm starting at the beginning and I got all this energy. Like it's all psychological.
It's digestible chunks too. Like for me, I do look at the clock and I can count it down, and then I can start another clock and count it down versus me counting down a longer clock, which I feel like is never going to end.
Absolutely.
And then exiting out of that clock.
Yeah, it's like I'm the 20-minute kickboxing and then the 20 minutes of dance. Because I'm like, okay, if I get through this 20 minutes of kickboxing, I could dance for 20 minutes and that's my 40 minutes and I'm good. I'm done.
Right. Or like me, I don't dance. So I just run for 20 minutes. But that's another show, Jay. I'm just saying. Do we want to hit on CEUs that we get questions on all the time?
Oh, yeah. Those are so awesome.
So, yeah, y'all know or should know or will know now that you're supposed to get recertified every 2 years with about 20 hours of continuing education credits. A lot of folks ask us, like, what counts, what doesn't. I know we have a lot of free options right now on the NASM and the AFAA website, so check those out. But if for some reason, this is something I wanted to talk about was petitioning. If you have a certification that you've attained for whatever reason, and you're like, I don't know if AFAA or NASM will accept this, we do have a petition link on our website under recertification that you can submit to see if we will apply those hours. So don't hesitate to try, just to double check.
Right. Just make sure you have the proper documentation, like the outline of the course that you took, or a
Yeah.
syllabus of what all the stuff that was covered, and like
Right.
how many hours of video you had to watch or reading material and stuff.
Right.
That way they can properly calculate how many CEUs that course
Right. Like, does this count, Jay? Is that
absolutely.
not
I think that's all 20 in one right there.
I'm going to submit that and hope that that gets accepted as my credits. For me personally, I like the online free CEUs that we offer, but I also like conferences. That for me, even in pre-COVID life, I do miss it because it was a way that I was able to network with my homies and my colleagues, but it also allowed me to get all my CEUs typically in one quick swoop, and network and happy hour at the same time. So just know what is best for you to get those hours. If it's little chunks, like we said, cool. If it's one conference, like we said, that works too.
And I think that's using the CEU route is a good way to hone in your specializations, whether you're a trainer or whether you're an instructor. I think taking the courses that are of interest to you is what's important, because that way it holds your interests. Like this past Sunday, I just finished the integrated balance training course. Yes, because I work with a lot of older adults. So it was really cool to be able to hone in on that specific skill, because that's the demographic of people that I work with now.
Right. Yeah. And then I know y'all have seen the scroll at the bottom about the nutrition options. You know, if you want to explore different parts of your own educational, I don't want to say gaps, but I have gaps every year, and that's why I take different lessons. So whatever gaps you have in your own personal development, use that as a way to expand upon your CEUs. It doesn't necessarily have to always pertain to teaching. It just has to pertain to the industry. And a lot of what is out there currently right now, especially online, is accepted. You just have to submit it the right way. Not with this.
And don't forget some of the things that are not so fitness related, like leadership skills, coaching skills. Those are also some very good areas where you can get some continuing education credits to apply toward your certifications.
Very true. Do you want to tell folks how to find you on social while I see if there's any questions? I don't think we have any, but that's fine. We can try to check comments later.
Oh, you can find me on Facebook at JFit Fitness Services. On Insta, you can, like the young kids say, on Insta, you can find me on at The Real JG, TheRealJaigee, The Real JG.
And then, you can just slide into his DMs and ask all the questions. Or slide into mine, which happens on occasion. But, my social handles were on the little doohickey. I don't know what to call it. But you can find me at Cat with a K. No questions right now, but like I said, we'll check comments and try to answer questions. Just do the best you can. If you're not yet someone who's passed the exam, just study the way that works for your learning style. And if you are a group fitness instructor, join us on the Facebook page so we can have
more discussion.
For more discussion, virtual happy hour kind of stuff.
But I have to give a huge shout out and a happy birthday to AFAA Master Instructor Shelly Dawson in Utah. Today is her birthday. So Shelly, happy birthday.
And you've seen Shelly on a lot of our amazing yoga videos and snippets. So holler at her, slide into her DMs.
Absolutely. And just tell her happy birthday. We love her. We miss her.
So happy birthday, Shelly. Thank y'all for joining us today on this We Speak episode. We will see you next week and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Make it a great day.